Welcome back to the Tech Talks Daily podcast, a place where industry experts discuss how technology is impacting our life, our work, while also transforming entire industries and even the world. Every day, I'm going to be serving you a daily dose of optimism and motivation while highlighting along the way that technology really does work best when it brings people together. Now, I have interviewed over 2,100 people on this Daily Tech podcast, and I do enjoy every single one of them. And touch wood, I've not encountered one difficult person along the way, but every now and again, I come across someone that's just filled with amazing energy and passion for what they do, and also amazing human beings to boot. And I've been very fortunate recently. I've had a few great people on here, Elijah Allen Blitz and Stevie Hopkins, to name but a few. But today's guest just won me over straight away. Just got amazing energy, a great sense of fun. And his name is Joey Cofone, and he's the founder of a company called Baronfig. And he's also the author of a book called The Laws of Creativity. And what I love about his mission and why I invited him on the podcast today is that he's dispelling that age-old myth that, hey, only a select few people out there are creative. And if you found yourself ever saying, oh, I can't help, I'm not creative, it's time to retire that myth once and for all today, because I think we all began our lives creative. Think back to when you were a child, everyone was creative. But many simply let go of it as they get older. So today, I want to explore with Joey how anyone can unlock their originality and awaken their creative genius. And I also want to learn more about Joey's tech startup story before going on a practical exploration of creativity, what it is, how it works, and how you can harness it in your everyday life too. But enough spoilers from me. Buckle up and hold on tight as I beam your ears all the way to New York, where Joey Cofone is waiting to speak with me today. So a massive warm welcome to the show, Joey. Can you tell the listeners a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes. All right. Well, Neil, thank you for having me. My name is Joey Cofone. I'm an entrepreneur and author. I guess we can add that to the list now. I founded Baronfig, a company that makes tools to help you do your best thinking. And I recently wrote The Laws of Creativity, a book that teaches you how to master your ideas. Under the hood, since this is the important part, I think, I'm a designer, and I've designed and art directed over 100 products from zero to the consumer's hands. So in a nutshell, all this stuff, my work is basically helping people turn their ideas into reality.
And it's just a fantastic book. Thank you for sending me over a copy. And before we talk about this, though, and your work at Baronfig, I'd love to take you back in time for a moment. I mean, can you remember where your passion for tech came from and creativity, how those worlds collided, and the moment that put you on the path today, the path that you're on today? Or should I say, what's your origin story?
Yeah, I mean, we could go in so many directions, but if we want to talk straight up tech, because I do, the thing that blew me away, Christmas morning, must have been like 1990, 1991. Wow. Okay. Back in the day, the medium day, I guess. I wake up, I go into the living room, there's just one box. Like for all intent and purposes, it seemed like the crappiest Christmas ever. Like there was not a ton of stuff. So, okay, I go wake my mom, we go in, and she's so excited to give me this one box. And I'm already grumpy. I don't even want to open it. I'm such a spoiled little punk ass. But I open it, and it's a Nintendo Entertainment System, the original NES. Okay. Wow. And so for me, that was my first entry into what technology can do. I was playing, I think it was, Mario, and I was blown away. And then I was playing Duck Hunt. And are you familiar with Duck Hunt? And the gun you shoot at the television in 1990. Like, wow. I mean, that was high tech back then. And since then, I have had a passion for technology. I've had a passion for gaming, how storytelling can be uplifted by the medium of technology, interactive tech. And, that has really, actually, no one has ever asked me this question, but a lot of the way I design is inspired by video games because they're actually quite ahead in terms of user interface and storytelling before it gets to other mediums, especially up until the last like 5 to 8 years. Before that, gaming wasn't really a mainstream thing. So that's my entry point into tech. And now, of course, like I just watched one of the Apple event yesterday, and I'm following the new Google phone and the crazy camera, and I love technology as much as I love any analog tools.
And it's funny you should say that, because I always ask this question, and after 2,100 interviews, the amount of times people say, depending on their age, it could be the original Atari, it could be the Nintendo system, it could be the Commodore 64 in the 80s. And when you look back, parents as a rule were like, video games are bad, you shouldn't waste your time doing this stuff. But really, it's inspired so many people to have a fantastic career in tech, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And also, I meant to say before we started, but props to you on every day, man. That is impressive. Like, you are the man. Like, that is a cadence, like gold medal worthy for sure. So I don't know if anyone else is giving you props, but I'm giving you props.
I'm still waiting for the achievement to unlock, but it hasn't done yet,
Oh man, you're good.
But well, I mean, for yourself, I mean, that path has led to you writing this book, The Laws of Creativity. But I've got to ask, what was it that inspired you to write that book and get those ideas and insights out of your head and down on paper?
Well, I'd been taking notes for 10 years. I know it's a book that I wanted to write. Creativity matters. I think people undervalue and mostly misunderstand what the heck it even is. People have it all wrong. They think it's something that only like professional designers or painters or sculptors, but it's not. And that frustrates the hell out of me, because like when I ask people, in starting this book to see where the value lies, I ask people, do you think you're creative? And the answer is always no. Yeah. And it blew my mind, because I'll tell you a good fact. Okay. This is some serious gold from my end here. NASA, the same organization that has put people on the moon, that has gotten measurements down to the millimeter light years away. They're not wrong. This is a crew that is not wrong. Okay. Wrong is bad at NASA. They did a study that found that 98% of kids at 5 years old are creative geniuses. Okay. This is NASA saying this. It's not hyperbole. But by adulthood, it goes from 98% to 2%. Okay. That is a gross failure of society for us to have that level, like that reliable, magnificent, disgusting drop from 98% to 2. So I challenge myself to say, hey, can I write a book that doesn't teach you how to do it, but it more like teaches you how to remember what you already used to know as a kid, because most of us are creative. And so then I wrote it.
It's so refreshing to hear that, and I think it was in a book, Fahrenheit 451, it was saying that everybody is actually born completely different, not the same. We're all born completely unique, and then we put them in an education system where we turn everyone to be the same and kind of hammer that creativity out of them. And in your book, you state the laws of creativity, and now anyone can unlock that originality and awaken their creative genius. But you've kind of hinted already at this, but we need to retire that myth, and that there are only a few people in the world that are creative. And what would you say to that person that's listening saying, no, I'm not creative? What would you say to that person?
Well, I would say NASA's not wrong. It's probably you that's wrong, right? Number one. But like you mentioned, it's beaten out of us. Ray Bradbury, I think, wrote Fahrenheit 451. Yeah. And there's a lot to how it's beaten out of us, but I write in the book, there's 3 things. Authority should never be questioned. Rules should never be broken. And the third, which I say is the most damaging of all, which it definitely is in school, you are taught, all of us are taught, that the end is visible from the start. And again, no hyperbole, like literally they say, we want you to write a 3-page paper on Fahrenheit 451. You know what you're going to end up with. Always.
Yes.
then when you're out in the real world and in life itself, you never know what the hell you're going to end up with. And so people recede into the familiar. And that's why it goes from 98 to 2%.
Got you. And one of the things that I think as well is, this is where the old man in me comes out, but I think in many areas, we've all lost the art of daydreaming. And by that, I mean, could be sat on a train, sat in your favourite armchair and just staring out of a window without reaching for that phone after 35 seconds and just letting your mind wander or going for a walk. And because that's where the ideas come, isn't it?
Yeah, I think we've conflated boredom for stillness.
Yes.
Stillness for boredom.
Yeah.
Where if you may not be, you may look bored, but you may actually be like quite involved, just sitting there thinking. You know, as a designer, I'm at the point in my practice where 80% of my design is actually me sitting and staring abstractly as I design in my head, because it's so much faster than doing it on the computer or on paper or anything. Yeah. And then I take once I get to a place where I see that whole thing come together, then I sort of record it on the screen. And of course it gets more refined in those last bits, but so much happens in stillness. And to the untrained eye, it's like, dude, you're just sitting on your ass doing nothing.
And I'm curious, really, for the large part, people go to school and they're all taught the same ideas. They then grow up, they get a job, and then they read business books or self-help books that all tell everyone to think the same and act a certain way. And of course, if everyone reads those same books, they're all going to have the same ideas. So it's a big question, this one. But what is the secret to discovering how to think more creatively and generate more ideas? What's the secret in doing that?
So the book has 39 laws, and they span 3 sections about how to think creatively, how to the creative process, how to act creatively, and then how to really excel.
Yeah.
But you always have to start at the beginning. You have to build your foundation. And how do you think creatively? So the first one is to realize your uniqueness. Mm-hmm. Okay. Because it leads to self-expression. The second is understand how inspiration actually works. A lot of people think you wait till the idea strikes. No, as a creative professional, I can tell you for sure that I don't sit around waiting for my work to be ready to go, right? You learn how to strike the muse. And then the third is to accept how the process works, which is you don't know the end from the start. So we touched upon that. So basically, your unique inspiration is something you can actually control. And then there's a reliable way to create. And I go into all of that in the book, but I do want to briefly touch on the first part about realizing your uniqueness, because I think this is where we can all start. And it's a good place for listeners to start, which is take this, I'm going to just say, let's name 3 things that you like. Okay, Neil, let's start with books. You like Fahrenheit 451. Cool. Yeah. Give me a movie. Any
movie. Well, see,
not your favorite. Not your favorite.
Not my favorite.
If I say favorite, man, it'll take hours.
No, okay, I'm going to go straight in there. Since I'm talking to Joey Cofone, I'm going to have to go with Goodfellas.
Goodfellas. Okay. All right. Well, then screw it, man. We're going to go for TV show. We'll go with The Sopranos. Okay, so we got.
I'm a predictable guy. What can I say?
All right, so let's take those 3 things: Fahrenheit 451, Goodfellas, and The Sopranos. All right, so we've got a book, a movie, and a TV show. There are more than 1,000 options for each of those. There's infinite numbers practically, but we'll say there's 1,000 of each. Just those 3 things alone, if they were something you really liked, there's a billion permutations. So you're already only 1 in 8 people on the planet, right?
Wow, yeah.
Right? Pretty crazy. Now, if we add a 4th thing, so say I really like, black coffee, and there's a ton of drink options I could be drinking right now, more than 1,000. Yeah. With 4 options at 1,000, it's a trillion permutations, which is 128 times the population. Okay. So with a billion permutations being 128 times the population of Earth, you are clearly unique. When you start to put yourself into the things you're doing, into the things you're making, you're unique. And it's like a no BS unique. Like it's not when we give kids the trophy for participating, and we're like, you're special. It's not. It's like I'm saying you actually are special when you just take your interests, and only a few there, and you could take, and you're way more than 4 things. When you kind of take those and say, how can I sort of make these dance with each other in a way that represents me, and it ends up being incredibly unique. So that is an example of the first point of realizing your uniqueness. It's a very practical, like actionable way to do that, as opposed to, I didn't write a book of fluff where I'm just like, you're a unique butterfly. Like, that's not me. That's not me.
And I would say, if I reflect on the creative people that I've spoken to throughout the years, I would say the one thing that everyone, or one trait that everyone possesses, and it's simply having a curious mind and willing to ask questions and explore new ideas. So for yourself, how do you keep your curiosity and open-mindedness alive and away from that kind of binary thinking that we see in the media all the time?
That's a good question. It's really around, it kind of combines a lot. And it does sound a little bit like woo-woo mysticy, which is how do you get yourself into the present moment more often, right? And meditation, and I like to just call it paying attention. How do you get better at paying attention? Because there's a difference between looking and seeing. When you're looking, that's your eyes doing it. When you're seeing, your brain is doing it. Okay, and the more that you see, the more you will naturally start to process, because now you're actually looking at this and saying, wow, look at this cool light that, I'm just pointing at my light off screen here. That's really interesting how that works. I wonder if I mess with it. And you just kind of go off on, and I think as humans, we naturally do it because, as we said earlier, kids are naturally curious where we've lost it. But really, it's just coming back like kids are and playing in the present. Play is another way of interacting with the present. And there's no easy way to really get there. A little bit of meditation, a little bit of paying attention, a little bit of just indulging your curiosities and not feeling like you're weird for doing that. As I go into this whole thing in the beginning of the book, how weird has been weaponized. Maybe you've read that part where, how dare we as a human beings say, and guilty. We're all guilty of this when we were in like high school of, that weird kid. Yeah. Right.
Anyone that looks different or stands out.
Damn. Yeah. Like you mentioned, talk about beating everybody into conformity. That weird kid had so much bravery to just be themselves and be different from the rest of everyone else. And I'm going on a tangent here, but I think you get the idea, is to just be true to yourself and pay attention more, and you naturally will bring back your curiosity, and the ideas just start coming, really.
And from the people you've worked with and you've spoken with over the years, do you have any examples of how the best creators excel beyond the rest, and how people listening can follow in their footsteps too?
Yes. So each chapter, I forget if I said this, each chapter starts with a story. And there's one particular story in part 3 that is my favorite, the whole chapter from start to beginning. And it's about Bruce Lee. Yeah. And essentially, Bruce Lee, maybe, did you read that part by any chance or not yet?
No, I've not got to. I'll tell you the truth. I'm going to Turkey in a week on Monday, and it's my holiday read.
Oh, cool. All right. So that's awesome. I'm honored, man. That's so cool. I hope you enjoy it. But like Bruce Lee, so he basically was challenged by another master because Bruce Lee was teaching anybody who wanted to learn, including non-Chinese in California. And the master said, this is, we don't do it this way. So this is different times, of course. And Bruce said, anyone who wants to learn is going to learn, period. So they had a match, right? This is how you solve problems. You fight. So they had a match. And what happened was Bruce absolutely destroyed this master. Actually, the master actually turned around and ran away. And because Bruce Lee was born from the streets of Hong Kong, which is how and why he learned to fight, he chased the guy, jumped on his back, beat the ever-living crap out of him, and made him say, I surrender. But then afterwards, Bruce changed his entire philosophy. He condemned mastering martial arts. And everyone's like, well, what the heck, dude? You just beat this guy. Why would you say that it's a bad thing? Yeah. And he said, it's because my greatest strength, this is also my weakness. And still people are like, what are you saying? But essentially, Bruce Lee, rock, paper, scissors?
Yes, yeah.
Right? Bruce Lee was rock, and this person was scissors. And so Bruce Lee was always going to beat him. But what Bruce realized is he was just different in the right way. He could have easily been matched up against paper that would have destroyed him no matter what, because of his particular specialization in Kung Fu. So he threw everything out and he said, I now have a new philosophy called Jeet Kune Do, which is essentially learn everything and mix it together. And so he was doing boxing, karate, taekwondo, even fencing. And he kind of put this all together to fill up those holes. And lo and behold, Bruce Lee became the father of mixed martial arts because of that experience. And so it all boils down to what I've seen over and over working with the greatest creators is that even when they're at the top of their game, they are always trying to learn something totally new and separate. I can't tell you how many illustrators or writers are like, I'm learning to program, or I'm playing this instrument I've never played, or I'm going to go do this thing. And so pushing boundaries is something that is really, really common that I have seen with all of these top creators. And it's like, it's a law. It's a part of the book.
And I feel compelled to paraphrase Bruce Lee now and say, be like water, my friend. Be
yes!
like water.
Yes! Be like water. That's what my friend is. I love Bruce Lee, man. Oh
yeah, me too. So what would you say the biggest lessons that you learned while writing this book? Because obviously there's a certain amount of self-reflection going on as you're writing this and poring over it, because we hear a lot of authors, and people can now put out a book of 100 pages, but this is not one of those books. I mean, I'm just checking now, we've got nearly 450 pages in there. It's a good mighty read with so many valuable insights in there. So what did you learn while writing this?
Well, I probably shouldn't have told the Bruce Lee story before, because I'm going to go back. Bruce Lee's that chapter was the one I learned the most from. And I would genuinely say that I have accidentally become a student of Bruce Lee in regards to be like water. No kidding. So I am extremely disciplined. Get up at 5, I meditate, I read, I work out, I write. Then I start my day, and then I have a whole routine at the end of the day. And my day is accounted for by the minute. And it helps me excel. However, Bruce Lee taught that there's flexibility in rigidity. And he talked about the water. The water water is powerful and it is soft, right? It can crash or it can flow. It's like the rest of that quote. You put it in the teapot, it becomes teapot. You put it in a teacup, it becomes teacup. And I realized in my own life that one of my strengths is my discipline, that I have, more discipline than most people I meet, can also hurt me when something changes and I have not programmed that into my schedule. And so I learned reading that was the biggest lesson I got. From a chapter, was to be more flexible in my life. And my wife is happier, and of course I feel somehow like I was given permission by someone worthy to say, it's okay, Joey, to not be so disciplined. It was just a wild experience. In terms of writing the book itself, I never intended to write a 400 and something page. I had a goal of 60,000 words. It ended up being 92,000 words. It just kept growing. And I think it reinforced a lesson that I've learned many times, which is you don't have control over what you're making or where you're going. You do the best you can in the moment. And what happens at the end, if you commit to doing the best in the moment, it really becomes the best as a collective item. So I am proud of what I've written. It hasn't released as of today. I'm not sure when this podcast will go live, but I don't know if other people will like it, but I can at least be proud and say I really put a lot into this book.
You really should be. And in fact, it was my own curiosity that just skipped straight into the book because I was excited to talk to you about this. But of course, you're also the founder of Baronfig, which you mentioned very early on in our conversation. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and the problems that you solve with technology at Baronfig too?
Yeah, so we make tools for thinkers, okay? And how do we help you get your best ideas out of your head? And there was a time when we had some software doing it, and now there's a time where it's a lot of analog, and it's been a whole saga in terms of how we've sort of danced around these things. And of course, our website is a piece of software that I've programmed parts of. And the genesis of the brand is I was in design school, and I saw that fellow design students were using two tools, and this actually relates to tech. Is there was a laptop and a notebook, and the laptops were always the same, MacBook Pros. Okay, everybody, yeah, but every notebook was different, right? Yeah, there it is. Yeah. Right. And so I'm in school and I'm looking at there's this laptop, and then everybody's notebooks, different brands, sizes, paper type. I mean, just as many people there's different notebooks. And I thought, why is there ubiquity in one and not in the other? And I didn't look at it as tech and analog. I looked at it as tool and tool. Yeah. And so I approached designing Baronfig inspired by Apple and tech and really high quality brands that are telling stories alongside their products. And so now, that was 2013. We started with a notebook. Now we've got somewhere around 50 products. And I've done over 100 when you count all the limited editions. So it's quite a host of things. And I would say it's directly inspired by technology.
Love that. And it's funny you should mention that. I was reading earlier today, there's a new survey come out that 25% of car owners have said they would buy an Apple car, and 50% of Tesla owners said they would buy an Apple car and think the quality would be amazing. And the car doesn't even exist yet. But there's that assumption there,
there's some serious loyalty. Yeah. That's amazing.
Now, we started the podcast talking about your origin story, what put you on this path. But as we get full circle, I'm now going to ask you to look back at your career, because none of us are able to achieve any degree of success without a little help along the way. And it often feels like the universe will give us a nudge in the right direction when we need it. But is that a particular person that you're grateful towards that helped you get where you are that we can give a little shout out to today?
Yeah, absolutely. There was a teacher that changed my life. So I told you I went to English and philosophy. I think I mentioned this. Anyway, I did those two things, and then I went to do design. And I went to art school as an illustrator, not as a designer originally. And I go to this illustration class, and I absolutely sucked at doing this assignment. But whatever I did, the teacher pulled me aside and she said, "Do you know what graphic design is?" I said, "I had no idea." This is before, design was a popular topic or profession. And she explained it, and she said, "I think you're a designer, not an illustrator." And her name is Lara McCormick. She absolutely changed my life that day. The moment I started my design classes, I was like, oh, this is it. And I worked 10, 12 hours a day. I just worked and slept. I loved design, and she changed my life. I'm giving her a shout out here. I give her a shout out in the book. I give her a shout out any chance I can. And she's got to be tired of hearing this by now, but she changed my life, and I'm grateful. It was just a moment for her, but it's a lifetime for me.
Oh man, that is inspirational. It's so important to get those thank yous out there. I don't think most of us don't realize the impact we can have on another person with just a few words, investing a little bit of our time. It's so powerful. And before I let you go, though, we've talked about the book. When this podcast goes live, that book will be available. And I do recommend anybody check it out that's interested in exploring their creative side. And as we've said in this podcast, everybody is creative. So how can people get hold of the book, find out more information about what you do, and also check out your work at Baronfig as well? What's the best starting point for everything?
Yeah, there's 3 ways to connect. You could check out The Laws of Creativity at joeycofone.com/book. And there'll be ways to buy it or whatever. Or you can just visit Baronfig at baronfig.com, and you can see all of the stuff we make. And finally, if you want to connect on Instagram or Twitter or both, just at Joey Cofone, and would love to say hello. If you disagree with anything I've said, I'd love to hear it. If you agree, that's cool too, I guess. But always up for a good debate.
I love it. And as we've talked about, man, you know, creative thinking has always been humankind's unique ability to combine unrelated and abstract ideas. We are all creative. But what I love about the book is how you've got these inspiring and enlightening and surprising stories of iconic creators across history. And there's some big names in there, not just Bruce Lee. There's Albert Einstein, Serena Williams, Martin Luther King, Harry Houdini. So if you're interested in creativity in any way, I encourage you to check that book out. But as for you, Joey, just a big thank you for sharing your story with me today.
Neil, thanks, man. And you know what? I leave this discussion extremely sad. And I'll tell you why.
Why? You
are awesome. And it bums, you know, when I meet someone incredible, it bums me out that, like, I live across the ocean and, you know, I'm not going to get to hang out with you, you know, many times more in my life. But damn, man, I'm not bullshitting you here. I don't know if I'm allowed to curse. Like, this is why we're alive.
Yeah.
To talk to people and enjoy ourselves, and if we make something, and just thanks for being you.
Thank you. Awesome. And you're awesome too. And I'm not just saying this, right? So the universe is not finished with us yet, Joey, let me tell you. So I come to the US a lot for tech conferences. So me and you, we're going to grab a beer in New York or at a tech conference somewhere. We will make this happen. I'm manifesting it now right here on this podcast. And as soon as you hear Joey Cofone from the old country, come over here, you know I'm there, right? So we will make that happen. But a big thank you for coming on here today.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
So a big thank you to Joey for demystifying that creative process by uncovering the thinking and science behind it. But more than anything, for his infectious enthusiasm and authenticity in sharing his story. We just got along so well. I feel like I know him and his life in our short time together that where we talked. But I mean, to prove that, I'll even give a big shout out to his wife, Ariana. So Ariana, if you're listening, a big hello to you. And as Joey gets added to the cool guys I want to share a beer with list, I now invite you to come on here and share your story with me. I know you have unique experiences and insights, and I want you to be part of this conversation. And there are many ways that you can contact me. Simply email me at techblogwriter@outlook.com. If you would like to slide into my DMs and send me an audio message on LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok, you can find me at Neil C. Hughes. I always like to finish every episode by saying technology works best when it brings people together. And the fact that you tune in every single day further proves that point. So I hope you'll join me again tomorrow. But a big thank you for listening as always. And until next time, don't be a stranger.